Hello and welcome to another video. In today's one, we're going to be looking at the tmnt 2007 prequel comics issue number 4. Now this one is centered around April, and it is pretty interesting what they do in this issue as they go into the origins of how she became an archaeologist in this universe, as well as her finding out the statue that we do get to see in the beginning of the movie. Now this whole issue is again really interesting what they do, and I do think that the whole idea and concept of April being an archaeologist is a really great and interesting one, and something which I would definitely like to see them explore a lot more in the future and hopefully go back to this sort of route, because I do think that this is a really fun side of a character and I'll definitely like to see a lot more of it. Okay, so we first start off with April opening up a box, and during this scene we do get to see her talking about how she didn't think her life would be turned out this way, basically her doing all these different jobs for Max Winters and stuff like that. And I must admit, I do find that really interesting, just because we never really get to explore April as a character and stuff like that, so I do find it really interesting and great that we are exploring her character here. And then that's when we do go into the second page, and yeah, yikes, the drawing for Max Winter during this page is not the best for his face. It's, well, it's definitely something, and oh god, yeah. So over the course of the next few pages, we do get to see April going back to her house, and that's where Casey's living, and I do find this to be really interesting, as she does mention basically Casey doesn't really support her in doing these trips with Max Winters, and I must admit, I do find that interesting. However, during this comic, as well as even in the movie, they never really show this side of Casey not supporting her whatsoever. In fact, they show him more supporting it with him helping April moving the statue in the movie. So I'm not too sure where all this negativity is really coming from. But we do get to see April go back to her home, and we do get to see her interacting with Casey, and more or less, it's not really going too well with their relationship and stuff like that. But that's when she leaves the house and she goes to a second time round store, where we do get to see a flashback to when Max Winters hires her, and it's not really a great scene, I would say. So in this flashback scene, we do get to see Max Winters in April's store, and he sees a mask and asks April what it is. April starts to mention what it is, and that's when Max Winters more or less cuts her off and basically offers the job, without really going into much detail or anything like that. I must admit, I do find it really weird that he just gives her a job without getting any more information about her. I guess maybe he got some information about her, but I just find that really weird and a bit creepy if he did that. So yeah. But going back to the present, we do get to see Max Winter comes back into the second time round store, and that's when he gives April the new assignment. And the assignment is going to Costa Rica, and basically April's going to be finding a statue that she finds at the beginning of the movie. And I must admit, this is a really great start to really setting up stuff for the movie, and I do think that's a really great thing. So over the course of the next few pages, we do get to see April goes to Costa Rica, and that's when she does meet up with Leo, and there's not really much I can really say here, just because they more or less just basically replay the same things that happened in the movie, so there's not really much I can really say there, but it happened, I guess. Now after this, April does meet up with a man called Sebastian, and basically he's looking for a statue as well. So basically April and Sebastian go off to go find a statue. Now during this time, we do get to see April goes for a swim, and that's when she gets stuck under some dead bodies. And I do find that to be interesting, but at the same time, I do think that this whole scene was a bit pointless, just because it didn't really add too much for the story or anything like that. But I guess it was there, and it was kinda cool I guess, but not really too much. So then after that, we do get to see April and Sebastian do actually find a statue, but this is when things takes a really interesting turn for the worse, just because Sebastian's people starts to kill everyone, and Sebastian even knocks out April. Now after this, we do get to see Sebastian has laid April out on a table, and is trying to sacrifice April to the gods, and I must admit, I do find this to be really weird, and just, I don't really know what to really say about it, just because I was not expecting this to happen, but it's there I guess. But then out of nowhere, Sebastian gets shot, and that's when we do get to see the government showing up, and that's when they try to save April from the statue, and tell April to go in the helicopter while they take the statue and stuff like that. But April over here is basically, the government is going to give the statue to like the highest bidder, so April doesn't really agree with this, and she decides to take the government's car with the statue and just drives it down the rainforest, and then that's when they do get to the airport. But after that, we do get to see the government man has shown up again, and he's holding them at gunpoint and stuff like that, and then that's when basically the government man gets shot in the head, and then this war breaks out in the airport, and I think it's interesting. I would like to see a lot more of this. And then after that, April just gets on the plane and just leaves, and that's pretty much it for the story. Now, I must admit, overall, this story was pretty interesting to say the very least. One thing which I did really enjoy about this whole story was the fact that this one definitely set up a lot of things for the movie in terms of the fact with the statue stuff, which I must admit I did really enjoy, and I did like the relationship which it did more or less expand upon with April and Max Winters, and I think that was like a really interesting and great thing, and I would like to see a lot more of it just because I thought it was a really interesting thing to see, and not to mention April as an archaeologist is just the best thing ever. I do think that her doing this job is pretty interesting, and seeing her go out on these missions and be able to show off a lot more of her skills is just so great, interesting and amazing, and it's definitely something which I'd like to see them explore again, just because I feel as though that it's definitely able to show a lot more interesting sides of a character, like showing off how smart she is and how capable she is like, as somewhat of a ninja, so I do find that to be really interesting, and again something which I'd like to see a lot more of. Now, I do think there's like maybe a few things in here that are a little bit bad, I want to say. Like, the first thing is basically saying that Casey's unsupportive, just because they say this throughout the comic, but then they never show it in the comic or even in the movie itself. So I don't really know if it's supposed to be like a plot point, or it's supposed to be setting up for the movie or something like that. But I just find it to be bad, just because they never really like show it. So I don't really know what I was doing with that. Another thing which I didn't really enjoy too much, or I must admit I didn't really enjoy as much as some other stuff, was how they did some deaths as well as some other stuff in this comic. Just because I think like getting shot in the head is like pretty dark, like especially for a kids comic book, and then also having something to do with cults and stuff like that. I just found it to be so unturtles, and I think that because it's supposed to be for a kids movie and trying to set things up and stuff like that, and again it's trying to be for kids, it doesn't really feel a kid's comic book whatsoever. It feels though that it's trying to balance that line between like adult and teenager and kid, but then just haven't really found that perfect balance and just feels a bit all over the place in terms of the tone, but it's just interesting for a few different reasons. But yeah, I must admit overall this whole issue has been pretty interesting to say the very least. I do think there are definitely some really good things in this issue that they definitely should have expanded upon, because there were interesting scenes and interesting things to do, but I think that because like what we did get in this issue as well as what we did in the movie, it does make up for it and it does tell a pretty interesting story. So in the next issue, we're going to be talking about how Leonardo became the ghost of the jungle and how he went around the world. And I must admit, it's a really interesting story, and yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. So yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed some, please share, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Goodbye, yo, bye.